Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Stromberg Carlson trailer tray. And today we're going to be installing on a 2019 Forest River Flagstaff hardside, but really the application doesn't matter that much because this is going to work well with just about any A-frame trailer, especially if you still have things like propane tanks or battery boxes mounted up. We were still able to get this in place. So even though you may not have a pop-up, this installation should cover just a good majority of A-frame campers. The basics of the trailer tray is really just adding real estate to a spot that's normally unusable on any camper. And this becomes a really great spot for whether it be a generator, coolers, tanks, whatever you may have that you're okay with storing outside and maybe you don't have room in your camper, you can store them on here. And this is rated at 300 pounds, so pretty heavy duty. You could put the compressor here, not have to worry about it, or even a generator, whatever it is. And to get it all strapped down, there's holes along the tray that allows you to put cam buckle strap, ratchet strap, whatever you have to strap that down. It also looks like there's gonna be carriage bolt spots, so if you really wanted to hard mount something, you could absolutely do this. Being that it's a universal fit means that there is going to be some adjustability to make sure that it's going to work around the things that you have, and that's kind of the glory of those bent arms and also this plate on the side. You really can get this almost exactly where you want, moving around from stuff, and that was something that we had to kind of work with. Was there's a storage compartment. We wanted to make sure we could still access that, so we made sure we had room for those handles. Now, with the installation, you may or may not have to move a breakaway switch, which we just did a few inches, or have to move things around. But for the most part, this is going to be dialed into where you can really use it in a bunch of different applications. But at the end of the day, this is a great way to get more real estate on your camper. Now, this is definitely something you don't have to be mechanically inclined to get this installed. It mostly just kind of sandwiches around the frame with those plates, and then once you kind of get everything aligned, there's a minor amount of drilling through the tube just to make sure that everything's bolted down custom fit to your camper. Once it's all said and done though, I mean, it's super solid. As I move this, there's no wiggle in the tray. The whole camper's moving. And so I have zero doubts that you could get 300 pounds on here, assuming you have someone to help you safely. And it's going to stay in place with all those mounting points. So if this is something that you're looking to do, follow along on the installation. I'll show you how to do this. And once you get it installed, leave us a picture. Let us know how you're using it. That helps us, share with other neighbors different applications that they might not have thought of, and really just kind of help other neighbors like you make sure that they're getting the best product possible. To get this installed, it's going to be pretty easy, and being that this is a universal kit, it's really going to come down to your setup that you have, whether you have a battery box or really any other things laid out on the A-frame. So getting this to fit should be a bolt up, but there are occasions where you may need to modify things, trim things. In our case, we are going to have to move our breakaway switch just slightly, but the concept's going to be the same. So just make it work with yours. And the first thing we're going to do is get our lower stake pockets in place. First thing, I'm going to get this in place and figure out which way I want the bolts to go. I think this is going to be a good way to do it. That way it's not sticking out. So just take your long bolt with the flat washer. I'm going to slide that through the top, and then we'll take our strap and we'll use this top hole. And I'm just going to put the flat washer and the nylon lock nut just hand tight for now. We're just going to try to get everything spaced out properly. And we're really not going to be tightening anything down until we really get it all assembled. So here, maxing out where our bolt's going to be, you'll see that it's going to be really close for our other strap, but the main thing is our bolts are going to be, in parallel with our brackets, not going to put it at an awkward angle. So I'll put this one in place as well. And with putting this in place, I can kind of mock this up. Our bolts are nice and perpendicular to the frame, so that's what we're looking for. Now you can see I really don't have a whole lot of wiggle room, and that's where if you had to make modifications, maybe make a notch here in the L channel, you could absolutely do that to make it work. But the main thing is making sure that you're not completely against the wall here and that everything's going to fit. I mentioned that you can do the bolts either way, and I see exactly why, because I can get this threaded on here, but as I hold this in place, getting a socket on here is going to be really difficult, which for installation purpose, yeah, I could use a wrench and get this all tightened down, but if I ever had to move this later on, I'd rather get it to a point where it's easily accessible. So I am going to flip this around. Again, whatever works best for your application is going to be the best way to do it, but this will make it a lot easier to get everything tightened later on. So with these top two in place, we're just going to repeat the same process on the bottom and on the other side, and just go to the lowest hole or the highest hole that you can. So obviously our top one, the frame of the trailer is in the way, so I'm going to go right under here. So really trying to get this as tight around the frame as possible. Now on this side, we have lots of wiring, and obviously important, you want to make sure you don't damage that wiring. So just make sure when you're putting your brackets on, you're not going to be causing damage or clamping around those. I would suggest kind of getting those pulled away. And as I said earlier, our breakaway switch was right in line of where our bracket was, so I am going to have to move this a little bit. It's just going to be a self-tapping screw that will move up a little bit further or create a bracket. That way it's not going to be in the way of our new storage tray. Now we can start assembling the tray and the side plates that go on the tray. So obviously there's a sticker that will tell you which way is up, but you should have this channeling facing up. And your side plates, you're going to take, and these are going to bolt up to the 3 square holes that we have on the tray, and this is going to become the mounting point later for our arms and that upper pocket. So with that in mind, we're going to be using carriage bolts for those square holes, and this one, you could go either way. I would probably suggest having the carriage bolt head on the inside. That way when you're storing stuff here, it's not going to cause any damage or rub against those threads. I think it's just kind of cleaner and gives you a little bit more tray to work with. So we'll pass this through. We have flat washer and then a nylon lock nut. And then we're just going to get the remaining 2 on this side, and then we're going to repeat. And this one, once you get everything hand tightened in, we can snug it down using a 9/16 socket. Our upper stake pockets can now get bolted up to our brackets, and there's a lot of different room for adjustment here, but I think our best bet is going to be start towards the rear, and that way we can utilize this space, and if we need more clearance, we can always move that, as the arms do kind of create a dual bend. So we're going to see where it sits, but we do need to get this mounted up. And the hardware is going to be the shorter bolts with, it's got 2 flat washers, so we're going to put one on the head of the bolt, and then on the back side we'll finish it up with the other flat washer and a nylon lock nut. So 4 holes total, just get all your hardware in place. For the next step, you might need an extra set of hands, because we're going to start to get the placement and see if we need to adjust this upper bracket to get it exactly where we want. And the way we're going to do that is by putting our tubes in place. And this is where we can kind of mock this up by holding it in. But as you can tell, I have a ton of wiggle room as my hardware is not tightened down. And since I'm limited as to where I can move my bottom brackets, I'm going to go ahead and get mine snugged up, and that way I can see exactly where these are going to be. If you want to start to tighten yours down, by all means do that. If you do have wiggle room, you might just snug it up enough, but to where you can still move it with a dead blower, just slightly loosen and be good to go. But I think this is going to get us a lot closer once this is snug. And when snugging these down, I would kind of just get everything close. Don't get crazy on one side or the other. That way it tightens up evenly, so kind of work in a crisscross pattern. And the head of the bolt is going to be a 9/16, but the nut is a 1/2 inch. So you're going to probably want a box end and a ratchet to be able to get this all snugged down. So with the arms just kind of dropped into our lower pockets, this is where you might want an extra set of hands because it can get a little bit cumbersome, but we're going to slide over our top brackets over the pipe. And what we're going to be looking for is, obviously that it's going to be at a spot where it's not going to cause any issue on anything, but Predominantly, they want this to where it's going to be 1 to 2 inches away. Now, this is a storage compartment in ours, and the latches still have to open up. So I want to make sure that I'm leaving plenty of space for that to occur. So with my latch completely down, it leaves me about 3 inches. So I think what I'm going to do is probably move this forward, maybe 2 holes, and see where that puts us. Now, moving this forward is nice because I can start to see how much adjustment I really have. And the handle latch that I was worried about, I still have at least 1 more hole that I can move this to where we'll have still plenty of clearance for this. And that's what we're looking for. Get it nice and close up against the camper. That way you have room for your jacks or, turning clearance, anything along those lines. So try to get this. They said, I think 1 to 3 inches. We're pretty close to that just because of our latch is a little bit different, but 1 more hole back should do it. And once we get that adjusted exactly where we want it, I'm going to try to center everything up because this can kind of swivel from one side to the next. So getting it centered up, I'm just going to use, my coupler latch as kind of a good reference point to get it centered and squared up, and then we can snug all that hardware down. Now is a great time. Make sure everything's going to work well. Try to think of all the potentials of what you might need to do to gain access, or make sure that all the clearances are good. And also, obviously, make sure it's centered up, because once you're happy with that, we're going to start drilling to make sure that it stays that way. And you're going to find that on both of the top and bottom brackets where the arm will go, there's going to be a hole on each side, and we're going to be drilling through the pipe to be able to do that. Now, that's why it's important as we hold it here, we're going to find exactly where we need to drill through. And I do probably recommend, so does the instructions, marking this first and then taking it out and drilling all the way through. So you can use either a punch or a paint marker or whatever it may be, but mark the 2 top holes. You'll see the bottom one is threaded. Omit that. That's going to be just kind of to tension that down once we get the bolt through. But I'll get that marked out and then we can drill it. When it comes to drilling these holes out and marking them, I did do the other side just to kind of get my feet wet and figure out what we're getting into. And I'm going to tell you that I think it's actually going to be quite a bit easier and a better fit to do it while it's on here. Now, I get why they don't want you to, really tear up these holes, and you have the potential to maybe not drill it straight on. But if you have a right angle drill, you can get to both sides. I think that's going to be the best bet. And you might notice that this bolt, I put that in the threaded section because eventually that's going to snug everything down, but once you put the bolt in, that may alter as you start to tighten this down. So I think it's almost best to get it tightened to where it's seated properly, then drill. In order to drill it out, it's a 3/8 drill bit. I would start with the smaller one, just kind of go at the center on both sides, and then you can work the drill bit all the way through. You can have your shoulder bolt ready to test to make sure that it passes through. So try to get it centered as possible with that smaller drill bit. You can use that punch if you have one, and drill all the way through. And then I'm going to go from the other side and get that drilled out. Now, if you don't have a right angle drill and it's tight, you can take this off and drill it out that way. The biggest thing is just making sure that we get that bolt in at a straight shot and also keeping it in the same position that we want it to be permanently. And once you drill through both with that smaller drill bit, take that 3/8, which should be the same exact diameter as this hole, and then we're going to, same thing, go on both sides, and then once we drill through with that 3/8, you can pass the whole thing through, clear that out, and then we can get our bolts in place. And once you drill through both sides or all the way through, just make sure that bolt passes through easily. If you need to, you can waller that out just a little bit, but we'll get that in place, and then we're just going to repeat for the remaining holes. And once you have this tightened down, you can go ahead and get that, if you haven't already used that alignment screw, just with the 9/16, you can tighten that down, and that should just get everything a little bit more robust feeling. So I'll go ahead, I'm going to get the rest of my bolts in place, and then we can mount up our front bracket. And once you get all of them in, 9/16 wrench and socket combo to get that tightened down, and then come back to that locking bolt, tension that down, and just repeat on all of the brackets. Now we're going to get our front support. This is going to eventually bolt up to the L bracket. and become a front structural support. And in order to get this attached to our frame, we have this bracket and our bottom bracket and the long bolts. So we're going to find a place on our frame to get this bolted up. Right in front of our propane is going to be where we're going to be putting it. Again, check for wires. And for now, we're going to leave it snug, but also still be able to move. That way we can get it like perfectly dialed in once we get our other bracket in place. When getting your bracket in place, make sure that you have this smooth portion, not the channeled portion, facing towards the front. And there's 4 holes on the bracket. You can use the outside ones, you can use the middle ones, whichever ones line up best for your trailer. Really all it's going to do is get that clamped down and become a support on that weight. These long bolts are going to be the way that we bolt it up. So I'll just drop these in place. And then we'll get our lower bracket put in place. And then we'll get our hardware loosely started. Now while this is loose, we're going to get our L bracket put in place, and you'll find that there's 2 holes on one side and then you have 3 holes here. So it is important on the front side of the smooth portion, these holes are going to line up with that. So first what we'll do is just kind of raise this up and figure out roughly where we're at. So I see I'm about halfway there, but I think once I bolt this down and just put a little pressure, I think that's going to get us exactly where we need to be. So we have 2 long slots here that's going to allow us to get our hardware started. Just make sure everything's squared up properly here, and then we'll get our hardware bolted up. And this is the 1-inch bolts. So same as we've done before with the flat washers on both sides. And then that nylon lock nut. And we're again going to leave this loose so we can get everything mounted up. And now I'll get this in place. Now keep in mind as I put this in and once I tighten this, it's going to pull that front down a little bit. So just really play around with it and see exactly how, this is pretty close to level. It's not going to be perfect, but get it as close as possible. So you may need to play around with it a little bit to get that perfect fitment. At this point, all of our hardware is attached, so we're just going to go through and snug everything down. I would probably try to get this top portion mounted first, and then once that's in place, get the bottom aligned. Try to get this as straight up and down as possible. It's going to be pretty simple. We'll just snug everything down, and that's going to do it for the installation. Now with everything tightened down, all that's left to do is load up whatever accessories you're looking to put on here, whether it be a generator, a cooler, really anything. This is a great way to add really prime real estate that you're normally not using. When you're camping with something like this, especially, having space for everything really starts to run out quickly, and this is a smart way to fix that problem. If you did have to move any electrical things, breakaway switches, or make any modifications, make sure you fix those before you get back out on the road. But I think you're really going to enjoy having the Stromberg Carlson trailer tray on your camper. And that was a look and installation of the Stromberg Carlson trailer tray on a 2019 Forest River Flagstaff hardside camper.